Well, Tom, it is great to see you. I was just joking. You got the winter beard going right now, and we've kind of been following along with what you have been doing and in this downtime. But go ahead and just tell us a little bit about where you're at right now and just how everybody is doing.
Yeah, so I live in upstate New York. We're about half an hour, 40 minutes north of Syracuse, New York. So it's just above central New York, right off the eastern coast of Lake Ontario. And yeah, it's obviously some odd times here as well. We live very rural. We don't have any neighbors or anything like that, so it's pretty easy for us to maintain a sense of normalcy. I would say, just because we're pretty used to kind of being out here on our own. We're able to go outside and not encounter anyone. So it's nice for us because we are fortunate enough to live in an area where we're able to do all that stuff outside and not have to worry about really running into anybody.
Did you get some snow last night?
Last couple days we have.
Wow.
Yeah, it snowed at nighttime, and usually around by noon, 1 o'clock, usually the snow is gone. I'm kind of looking out my back window right now, and there's just a little bit left in the shade. But yeah, it hasn't been anything crazy. It's just enough to remind you of winter, though.
Wow, just such a strange time, and then to look out and see snow, I cannot even imagine. How are you doing with the little one, the 9-year-old in particular? Are you helping out with the schoolwork?
Yeah, it's difficult. We have some experience homeschooling the last few years during baseball times, and it's not easy. I mean, obviously, I think a ton of parents right now are figuring that out. That most kids probably don't want to learn from their parents all day long after being disciplined on household things and stuff like that. But yeah, she's getting her work done. She's a great student. We really have always had great reviews from her teachers and stuff. So really, it's just about maintaining her schoolwork, and then obviously letting her be a kid in her free time as well.
Has she been doing any more critiques of your cartwheels or anything?
We've practiced quite a bit. Thankfully, Grandma and Grandpa got us a trampoline last year for Christmas. So she's been practicing her back handsprings, which I'm obviously very far away from ever trying.
Tom, I don't ever want to see that. Okay, the cartwheels,
no, me either.
back handspring, that's another altogether.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not in the cards right now.
Wow. Hey, we've been following along what you've been doing on social media, and I mean, I think everybody to this point knows that you are the workout god of the team. We'll just go ahead and say that. But you've really been sharing what you've been doing, and what's really been neat about it, it's not only the workout, but there's also been a little bit of philosophy, I think, involved in that as well, and also some creativity. How have you come up with what you're doing, and how did you come to decide that, yeah, you know what, I want to share this?
Yeah, so I guess there's probably a lot of answers to this question, but I would say, the kind of the passion behind it is that I feel like the fitness side of what I've done in my career has allowed me to get to the point where I'm at. I don't consider myself an extremely talented person naturally, or somebody that has a ton of natural skill. That takes a ton of work for me to acquire. But the physical aspect of the game is something that I've always been dedicated to since high school. And I think that's what's allowed me to buy time to allow my skill to catch up to where Major League Baseball players are at. So really, that's kind of been the forefront of my path to the big leagues, is that just being physically more capable than most people. And coming with that is an obsession. I went to college at the University of Buffalo. My strength coach was, I guess you could say, world renowned in the strength world. He trained at Westside Barbell, which is a very famous place in Columbus, Ohio. They routinely turn out the strongest people in powerlifting. And he really kind of started out my obsession with it, especially the research side of it. So really, I mean, ever since 2009, I would say I've just been cultivating, information and everything I could read about. And it's really just, kind of has accumulated to where, what you're seeing on social media right now. And that's, something I feel like I could share at this point. Obviously, we have a lot of downtime. That's really all I'm capable of doing right now, just because I don't have a cage in my backyard. I don't have anything like that. So really, I'm going to exhaust everything I can right now and hopefully share some information along the way.
Are people, kids in particular, like a lot of high school or college kids, are they kind of getting in contact with you and asking questions from what they're seeing?
Yeah, so there's been some people. obviously I welcome all conversation about it. It's a passion of mine. I truly enjoy learning and reading and hearing other people's opinions about it. I think it's important for people to realize too, is that you can't just jump into these sorts of things. You have to kind of build your way up. There's something called a training age. Basically, if this is your first couple of years in the weight room, I wouldn't suggest doing this sort of thing. There's a lot of other things that you could do in your free time to be more advantageous, and to kind of build your way up. But hopefully people understand that, and they're just getting a little bit of a glimpse, and hopefully ask more questions.
When you got into this, and you said you did a lot of the research on your own, and you had these wonderful resources too, what did you learn about baseball in particular and the unique needs of the sport?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question, just because I think most people are a little skewed about what it takes to be a professional athlete or a baseball player. I don't suggest reading Muscle and Fitness and then going out and saying, okay, this is how I should train to be a baseball player. I truly believe that if you are able to sprint, throw a med ball, and do some plyos, you could be just as good as a baseball player as somebody that has an access to a gold gym. Just because you're training your nervous system, not the muscular system. And, that's where our athleticism comes from, and that's where guys are going to get better. And hopefully my posts kind of help people understand that.
The position you play too, I mean, I think that's probably the most demanding on the field, and you need the strength, you need the flexibility as well if you want to be able to do some other things than just be behind the plate.
For sure. Yeah, I think that you've seen the build of the catcher evolve over time. You look at today's game, I feel like, you couldn't recognize them as being an outfielder or being a middle infielder, just because the demands of the game are much more challenging, and people are starting to really realize that.
Along those lines, I had this discussion with Mitch Haniger a couple of weeks ago, and I was happy with the side that he fell on it. Just this talk about having the automated strike zone, the robo umps, I don't like it one bit because of what it does to the catcher, which in my mind is the most interesting position on the field and what I like watching the most. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I think we're in the majority, because I agree with you, and pretty much everybody I've talked to has agreed on the same premise that to me it just completely devalues what I do. You look at how catchers are graded in today's game. It's obviously very receiving heavy, and you take that away from the catcher, you take away that nuance, that art form, because it has become an art form of how much skill work goes into it and how much better guys have gotten at it. It just completely devalues the position, and all of a sudden you just become this wall back there that hopefully can throw out runners and block baseballs. And I don't think that's a good thing for the game. I don't think that's a good thing for the position. I don't think you'll ever be able to view the game in the same light if that comes into effect.
And I'm right there with you. I mean, you're taking away an entire position, and no such change has been made, ever, I think, along those lines. You think most players feel that way?
I do. I really do. I think if we had to break it down, whether or not position players or pitchers would benefit it from the most, I think pitchers would benefit the most. I don't think some position players realize how much some guys are, given, that sort of thing. And you look at just kind of the hierarchy of the league. If you're a newbie in the big leagues, you're going to get more strike called against you as a hitter, as opposed to somebody that's a veteran. So in the bright spot of it all, I believe that could be maybe the most beneficial, is that it gives everybody the exact same strike zone. But like I said before, that's just not how the game has put in play, ever. So to take that away is just something that I don't think anybody's comfortable with right now.
Well, the other thing that gets me is I think umpires are getting better. I think as they get younger and they have more resources available to them, I think, when you talk about how many pitches are actually being missed in a game, and then how many are missed by the best umpires, it's next to nothing right now.
It's insane. And it's funny you bring that up, because I've been spending my mornings when I have a little bit of free time before my kids wake up, just watching old World Series games, watching old, 2000, 2010, some 90s games. And the umpiring was very, very poor compared to what it is today. I'm watching some guys just getting routinely 5, 6, 7 inches off the plate. That just never happens in today's game. So, the strike zone has evolved, and the umpires have gotten so much better, and they deserve credit for that.
What are you looking for when you're watching those games?
So, I mean, I guess in like I kind of alluded to before, the skill side of it, I haven't had much access to hitting and throwing. So, really, I'm trying to put myself into those games, put myself in those situations, be an observational learner, get as much out of the games as I can, because I mean that's the pinnacle. That's the height of the game that we all want to get to as a World Series. And to be able to watch it and almost put yourself and feel that emotion, it is a special feeling. It kind of brings you a little bit closer to the game.
What's the pinnacle of the pinnacle? What have you enjoyed watching the most?
I really enjoyed watching the 2011 World Series with the Rangers and the Cardinals. I got to meet Matt Holliday a couple of years ago, being with the Rockies. He spent some time in AAA together, and then I went up. I went in September with the Rockies that year as well, and Matt was up there. So seeing him out there and just knowing what type of person he was, and then being able to just text him and say, hey, what was going on here or whatever, it's been pretty cool. And I just think that series was a great series. To have David Freese come back in Game 6 the way he did there both times, I could watch that Game 6 game over and over and over again.
Oh, that's really neat. Hey, you mentioned a little while, or you mentioned it, I think, in that answer too, that the hitters, you're not able to get out and hit. And that's something that really kind of surprised with us. We talked to Tim Laker last week, and I think everybody was worried about the pitchers, and the pitchers all seem to be fine. They're out with catch partners, a lot of them, but Tim said not a lot of guys can hit right now. Why is that so difficult at home?
Just because it takes a lot more on the implement side of it. It's hard for a guy to justify building a cage in his backyard with all the necessary equipment. I mean, that takes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And then, living in the Northeast, my off season is during the winter. So I would have to build something with, some sort of, shed with a heating system. So just that alone is pretty tough to do. And to do that for only 4 months, in hindsight, I should have done it a long time ago, if you could ever anticipate something like this. But it's just very difficult. The game is so fast, and especially from the hitter standpoint of seeing pitches coming into it. It takes a lot more than just tee work for a hitter to be prepared to hit in the major leagues. You need to routinely see balls coming at you that are similar in velocities and shapes and spins and that sort of thing. And I would say that over 90% of the guys just don't have access to anything like that in today's world.
Who was I talking to the other day? Trying to think of who it was, but they said they were going to go out in the backyard and start hitting bottle caps. They were going to go old school with it, and that's kind of a good way to go.
No, definitely. That's a route I'll be taking as well. Just to do something, just to feel like you're getting something out of it, visually at least. Hopefully transfer just a little bit.
Let's talk about those pitchers. That was something that I think was one of the bigger surprises of spring training. The arms, a lot of them, I think, were further along than I thought they were as far as the relievers go, the young ones. And then the starters, they all had a little twist. They were adding things. The progress that we saw in a short time, I think, was very encouraging. What stood out for you behind the plate with the pitchers this spring?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. Obviously, the readiness of our pitchers was one. Coming into camp, it seemed like they were all midseason form. And that was kind of the beautiful thing of having such a young group in spring training, is that everybody came in with a huge amount of energy, which sometimes in spring training, especially early on, that can kind of be dulled down. Veteran guys know where they need to be. They realize the toll that all the seasons have taken on their arms. So they kind of, are easing their way back into it. Whereas us, I don't know how many pitchers we had in camp, but every one of them was trying to make that team. And that was very obvious. It created a great culture, great amount of competition between the guys. And it was really exciting to be a part of because, and the second part of this answer is they're given such great information in our organization that they really are at the helm of their career, which I don't think everybody in other organizations can say that. But you look at, how pitchers get better. It's all very objective, and it's amazing because, like I said, it really feels like they have the ability to make to the big leagues if they choose to. And kudos to our organization for doing that and giving the guys the reins because, like I said, I'm not sure everybody has that privilege.
How much new was added in that regard this year with the information?
I don't really know just because I wasn't here last spring training. I know during the season there was the same information that was available. That has been very clear since I've been a Mariner, is that they're not going to hide anything from you. If they believe that you can get better, or if they believe that you can look at something in a different light, they're going to give it to you, which is obviously as beneficial as anything for us as players. But just coming from previous spring trainings, this is much different than anything I've seen before.
How much are you keeping in contact with coaches, teammates, organizational people? Do you guys talk? Do you Zoom? What do you do?
Yeah, so we have our Slack app that allows players to have an open line of communication, allows coaches to have a separate channel to communicate with us as well. And then Carson Vitale also created a book club for us. So we meet every Friday, which just reminds me of The Office with the Finer Things Club. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but it cracks me up every time I sign in because I just think about Andy Bernard going in there. But no, we keep a very open line of communication in, separate webs, you could say. Us catchers have our own texting thread going on. So like I said, pretty much every avenue to be involved with somebody on the team is open right now. And that's, again, kudos to the organization for doing that.
What are you reading?
We just got done. Actually, well, this week will be our final week of Chop Wood, Carry Water, which is a great book all about the process. It's a book I've read before that was a great reminder, a great refresher to read again, and really applies to everything going on right now.
What are some of the other things that you're doing right now that you wouldn't be doing if you were playing baseball?
We obviously, like I said, we live in a very rural area, and I enjoy the outdoors as much as anybody. So as much time as we can spend out there and just kind of going to new areas, lands that my father and I hunt together. We've been out together a couple of times, just walking areas, figuring out new pieces of land. Those are the sorts of things I've never been able to do since high school, So, some of the lines, just being home for Easter. Obviously, we didn't get together as a huge family like we usually do, but our parents were able to come out and just, be a part of our kids' Easter egg hunt out on the outside, where we could distance ourselves and still kind of enjoy each other's time together that day. And then, spend my birthday at home too. Same type of thing. My parents came out, we took a walk outside, so that was great. Just to be home to experience those sorts of things was definitely different than anything I've experienced in what has been a very long time now.
Well, Tom, it sounds like you are handling all of the downtime just fine right now. I want to thank you so much for taking some time with us today.
Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate everything.